Hello, everyone. It's June the 20th, which means today is 28 days post-transplant, so about a month. Still in the hospital. I am due to go home any day now. The reason I've been held as long as I've been here was first off my last chest tube, which came out on Sunday, was just producing a lot of fluid, a lot of drainage from my chest. And they don't really want to send you home on that because it could have its own problems. So that probably added another week or so that otherwise I might be out of here already. And there's been a persistent infection called Pseudomonas aeruginosa that has been discovered in some of the bronchoscopies when they look in my lungs to clear them out. And I've had that in the past. And if you have lung disease, you're no stranger to that bacteria. And like cystic fibrosis, for example, a lung disease that you're born with, it's also very common in that population as well. What makes this one different than the ones I've had in the past, it's highly resistant to most of the drugs that the other ones would be susceptible to. So we're trying medications for it that even I hadn't heard of. And when I've been doing this for this long and haven't heard of medications, that tells you that it's something pretty nasty. Because I feel like I've had most every medication that you would have possibly heard of. So I mean, it's never a good feeling knowing that you're having to pull out, I guess, the dictionary to see what else is in there. But there's nothing I can really do about it. I just have to trust the team and hope that these antibiotics will work against it. And on my x-rays, my right lung is showing what the infectious disease doctor called it, like shadowing is the wording she used. I don't really know what that means or if there's any significance to it. I guess there's always a chance it could be like some acute rejection. Hopefully, if it has to be rejection, it would be acute. But I'll probably find out more about that when we do a bronch next week, unless the lung team tells me something sooner. But yeah, it's problems that you'll face eventually. But in the back of your mind, you would think you would at least get half a year or a year before already having complications and not 2 to 4 weeks after your transplant. And I don't think there's anything wrong with the lungs themselves. They were high-risk lungs, and only because at some point the deceased donor had IV drug use. That could be as recent as of like this current moment he was still using, or maybe even a couple of years ago, but it was disclosed whenever they were doing the workup. But all the tests and everything on the lungs themselves came back fine, and my body wasn't in much of a position to say, "Oh, let's just wait for something else." And I didn't have any second thoughts about it when we said, "Yeah, we'll accept it." We just felt like it was the right thing to do, and we went for it. My anxiety has gotten better. I still have moments where I feel nervous, anxious, but it's not like every single day, 2 to 3 times a day. I knew I was going to lose control of my thoughts at some point, and then it was going to really just mess up how I was thinking, how I was feeling. So that there's a positive there, and while I'm still quite weak, my endurance is slowly building up, and I think that will only accelerate once I get to go back home again. The patches on my chest, some report. That's a wound that's not healing all that well. But yeah, it's a life-saving procedure, but at the same time, and even I was guilty of this, it's not like you get the lungs and then you can go back 10 years or however long it's been and expect to have that kind of lung function again. The point of doing the transplant is so that you're better off than you were before, and that it's able to extend your life. There's no guarantees onto how long you'll live after or how much physical activity you'll be able to do after. But in theory, you should be able to do more than how you were going into it. And it can't be stated enough that my body was in a very, very bad way going into this. I never wanted to go into it feeling that sick and actually being that sick, but such is life. I'm just ready to go home again. I miss all of us being home at the same time, me, Dana, and the kids. And having done this before, a month in the hospital, it'll starts to wear on you after a while, both in a physical and a mental way. Just the days just run together, the weeks start to crawl. There's only so much change of scenery you can have. You see everyone else here that's working and kind of like just enjoying themselves, really, because at the end of the day, they get to leave. They don't have to live here. No, my antibiotic just finished. Yeah, so it'll be different being home again. Like, I'll still have my limitations, still got to avoid illnesses and get stronger, and at the same time take all these pills, do all these breathing treatments, which is good. I'm not going back to work right away because it's going to feel like a full-time job, essentially, managing all these new medications and whatnot. Sometimes you can't help but ask, like, is it worth it? Especially you don't know how long it's going to get you. And I've always been in the camp that I'll put in every single effort to extend my life here, no matter what pain and suffering it may bring me. But there is almost like a peace in just letting it all go. It's like, especially when you plan on this life not being the end of it, it's like, why am I fighting so hard to hold on to an imperfect life, an imperfect body, an imperfect world? But the human side of you doesn't want to let go like that. Like, I couldn't give up on my wife or my kids just because it's hard. Because, I mean, they're experiencing the challenges and difficulties of this as I am, just in different ways. Ezra's not, though. He's just along for the ride. Every day's a party for him. But it's knowing that God is using this suffering to do something bigger, and that something bigger, I don't mean that in the sense of like I'm gonna get a bunch of stuff out of this because I'm paying my dues, but he's gonna use it to change people. even change me. Like you can never be fully developed, I guess you could say. We all have stuff we need to work on. We all have attitudes that need to be brushed up on, and viewpoints that could be changed, and how we think or treat others could improve. And the journey's never done, essentially. Even by the time that our time is up, the journey still isn't done in a way. But otherwise, I just kind of watch TV during the day. I get out and walk some, but I mean, you can only do that for so long, and physically, I can only tolerate it for so long. I would recommend, however, if you're gonna have a long hospital stay or do some sort of transplant, to get like a Roku or a Amazon Fire Stick. Sorry about getting cut off. The lung team was making their rounds, so I had to ask all the questions. But I'll finish that last thought before I move into that. Get a Roku or Amazon Fire Stick. Some hospitals, like Methodist, has a pretty good cable selection. A lot of hospitals do not. And you're stuck with just that if you don't bring anything else. It makes a world of difference to have a lot more options, so do that. Lung team came by. It seems like the only thing that's really keeping me here right now, they just want to see physically like how I'm presenting. I felt pretty crappy yesterday when I woke up, because I think the plan was to send me home either yesterday or today. But I just felt kind of flu-like, so that kind of delayed that process. And my medications are affecting my blood counts. My hemoglobin, which is it measures the oxygen that's getting transported through your body via your red blood cells. For guys, it's around 14 to 18. And I've been running pretty low, like around 6 or 7 because of the medications, which sucks because I feel tired a lot, because that's where you get your energy. Your lungs oxygenate the blood brings it to the body. So they're going to watch that too, and just make sure I'm not trending further down, because I'll have to adjust my medications if that's the case. But yeah, other than that, like, just not getting too like excited or anxious about getting out of here, because then I'll drive myself nuts and the days will go by even slower. But getting home is in sight, thankfully. I just gotta be a little more patient, and I'll be out of here, at least for a time. A long journey, much more journey to go. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.